From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. I am joined by Laurie Flynn. She is the president and CEO of Link to Libraries. We are here today to talk about the importance of literacy in our communities and in our families. Laurie, thank you very much for joining me today.
It is my pleasure to be here. Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you very much. So far, so good. We're having a lot of fun here in the 22 News Plus studio. Let's start by talking about Link to Libraries.
Sure.
Who is it? How long have they been around? And what do you do, let's say, on a daily basis?
Absolutely. So Link to Libraries was founded in 2008 by two women, Susan J. Kaplan and Janet Crimmins. And it was founded really around the recognition that childhood literacy rates were pretty scary here in Western Massachusetts, and taking a look at those statistics and trying to figure out why. And one of the reasons was kids weren't having access to books. So how did they, Janet and Susan were really focused on increasing kids' access to books at school and at home.
So going back, for Janet and Susan, kids not having access to books, was it anecdotally that they see kids without books, or was it maybe a study that came out said, parents aren't utilizing libraries, whether it's the school library or the public library, and kids just weren't picking up books? I mean, how did that knowledge come about?
Sure. I can't speak with absolute certainty about this, but knowing Susan especially very well, I know that it was something that she went and talked to a lot of people about.
Okay.
And she did research on her own, and she took a look at what school libraries were offering. Were kids getting to public libraries? Did kids have books in their homes?
Right.
I think she looked at that here in Western Massachusetts. I think she looked at that nationally, and that together they realized that this really was a problem. Because if kids don't have access to books, how can they become proficient readers?
Right. Now, there's a measuring stick when it comes to proficient readers. It's what is it, the third or fourth grade? You have this, if you're not, I'll let you say the quote because
Sure.
because I know I'm going to mess it up, but there's a reading level by third and fourth grade that you always talk about.
Exactly. The one I often point to is this third grade statistic, which you're talking about, which is third grade is the year where kids shift from learning how to read to reading to learn.
Okay.
So what that means is that by the time they get into the fourth and fifth grade, they've got to have a strong foundation of reading skills, because now they have to read word problems and math. Now they have homework and history assignments that they have to be able to read and comprehend. So there's less of a focus on the nuts and bolts of how to read, and a shift to making reading a part of everyday learning.
So in third grade, you're roughly 8 years old, give or take.
Give or take.
So it's those first 8 years of life.
Yeah.
Even before, because there have been some studies saying a mother or father reading while the baby is in utero is very beneficial.
Has
So
an
it's
impact.
at least 8 years to that point
Exactly.
before they get to third grade that children need to be exposed to books and reading.
Yep.
So Link to Libraries has recognized that need. So how are you filling that need? How are you, making sure kids have access to books?
Sure. We primarily do it through we have two signature programs that we've really developed since 2008 that work really well. And the first program is called the Read Aloud program. And that's a program whereby we put volunteer readers into school classrooms, into third and fourth grade classrooms. They read in that every reader is paired with a classroom.
Okay.
So that reader goes to that classroom once a month during the school year, same kids each time. We provide them with a book to read aloud to the students. They read aloud to the students. They model good reading practices. They have a conversation with the kids about the book. And then when the reading portion of the session is over, we provide them with enough brand new books that every child gets to choose a book to take home and keep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of like being Santa Claus once a month. It's fabulous. I started out as a volunteer reader. That's how I got linked up with Link to Libraries. So that by the end of the school year, every child in one of those classrooms that has one of our volunteer readers now has a home library of about 9 books.
Right. So you think 9 months of a school year, every month they get a new book.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And when you consider, I think statistics have shown that about 70 to 75% of the kids that we serve, the kids with demonstrated need and schools with need, don't have books at home. So now they have a home library of brand new books that they have about 9 of that they themselves can read, they can share with siblings, with cousins, with friends, with family. I mean, the ripple effect is pretty impressive.
I know in your travels you have conversations with principals, superintendents, and
Yes.
individual room teachers. Is this a hurdle that our school districts face? Is that third grade reading to learn, learning to read?
Absolutely it is. I mean, it's a great concern, and teachers are being held accountable, and I don't really get into the aspects
Hmm.
of statewide testing and things, but there are numbers that get pointed to every year about where shortcomings may be.
Right.
And this isn't something that one person can solve in a classroom. It takes a village to raise these
Right.
kids, and it takes a
Literally,
community, literally.
a lot of people raising kids.
You can't just count on a classroom teacher to create a young reader. They can inspire, they can instruct, but you've got to reinforce it at home. They have to see out in their day-to-day life why reading is important. Otherwise, they won't do it.
Right. And to your point, parents need to do it more at home, and exhibit good reading habits themselves, because we all know kids are like parrots. They mimic what adults are doing, whether
Exactly.
it's, good reading skills or driving with your cell phone in your hand. Your kids are pick up on those things, and
They're
and they,
watching. They're
absolutely.
watching everything that we do. So one of the other good behaviors that we like to try and instill in kids, and I know that teachers and librarians in school are very good about this too, is teaching them about libraries.
Right.
And there are these places you can go where you can borrow books for free and bring them home and read them. And the other program that we have at Link to Libraries that's so important to us is called the Community Book Link program. And that's really a sponsorship program where a local business or a family or an individual sponsors a school library in need.
Okay.
And through those sponsorship dollars, we are able to provide that school library with between 200 to 250 brand new books every year.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea, I was just talking to a Springfield librarian last week. Times are tight, right? Springfield librarians, if the principals are able to sign off on this, receive about $550 a year. Okay,
For books.
$550 a year to buy new books, to replace books they have to have in their catalog, and to repair books. So
So on average, our local schools are only given, each individual school, about $500-600
there's
to
no,
manage their library.
it's not like
That-
in Springfield Public Schools, it's not like physical education and art programs. There's no designated budget for the library. It sort of comes out of this separate pot
Right.
that the principal approves, and it's about $550. So the fact that we are able to then provide them with all of these brand new books to add to their collections
Helps them
is
tremendously.
incredibly important. Yeah.
So when you're providing books to library, I mean, you're not providing shelves of books, are you? You're providing a few individual copies of different levels of reading.
Yeah, for the whole elementary spectrum. So
Okay.
our readers read in third and fourth grade classrooms, but the books we give to the libraries are for pre-K through fifth grade. So yes, so we make a concerted effort to purchase and provide books to libraries that are high quality, that are books that librarians are asking for.
Okay.
We make a big effort to have bilingual and Spanish books when those
Perfect.
are,
Right.
in need. So yeah, that's sort of how we do it.
Fantastic. We are up on our first break. You're watching In Focus. I am your host, Patrick Barry. I'm joined by Laurie Flynn, President and CEO of Link to Libraries. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Barry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Barry.
Welcome back to today's edition of In Focus. I'm here with Laurie Flynn, the President and CEO of Link to Libraries. We talked a little bit the first segment about what Link to Library is and what they do. Let's get into some of the nuts and bolts now, Laurie, of literacy, not just here in Western Mass or Massachusetts, but the country and the globe, and how important literacy rates are. So when you talk about the third graders, up to third grade, it's learning to read,
Hmm.
and then from that point forward, fourth and on, it's reading to learn. That's a crucial element because I have to imagine down the road, those kids who are left behind at the end of third grade have a lifelong. So you're talking, we talked 8 years old earlier. If somebody lives to 80, that's 72 years of being left behind because they don't know how to read.
Right. It just kind of compounds. It gets worse and worse. It gets harder and harder to catch up is the problem. So you see if kids aren't reading proficiently by the end of third grade, you start to notice how those statistics impact high school dropout rates. And we all know what happens when kids drop out of high school, and sort of the path that that then sends them on. So in order for kids to truly have a shot at being successful in school and in life, they have to learn how to read.
Now, I look at it as it's more than just job applications, or, once you land that job, knowing how to perform in that role.
Mhm.
It could be, all right, I got my gas and electric bill, I got my credit card statement. It's understanding those, a home mortgage or your rental agreement. It could be anything.
Anything, medication, your prescribed
Yeah.
medication, being able to, follow instructions on a bottle of medication properly. I mean, it's just, uh, uh, it's part of your everyday life. I mean, it really is stunning that there is such a high rate of illiteracy, especially among adults as well, when you consider how much we take for granted throughout the day that we're reading.
Right. There's some data on the screen now that people can absorb. It is frightening the amount of, and this is just U.S. data, the amount of U.S. citizens that don't know how to read.
Yeah.
And it's organizations like yours. Are there other organizations like Link in other states, or do you know that sort of, maybe if they're not called Link to Libraries, but maybe they're called something else, that do what you do to help get the
Oh,
books into hands? Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. We are not the only ones who realize that this is a problem, and there are a lot of different organizations that target kids at different ages as well. There's a huge focus on early childhood literacy. So prior to coming to Link to Libraries, I worked for an organization called Reach Out and Read.
Okay.
So Reach Out and Read works with pediatricians. So that when children come in for their well visits, pediatricians use books as part of that interaction to assess how they are progressing, and every child gets a book to take home, in that situation as well. So Reach Out and Read is a great example of another organization's hitting a little bit younger market than we do.
I like that idea
Yeah.
because the kid doesn't know they're being tested, for lack of a better
No, they're
description.
babies. They're babies.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But a doctor can tell a lot by how a kid is interacting with a book, and it presents a good opportunity for a doctor to remind a family how important it is to incorporate reading at home. Like we were talking about before, that modeling of good reading behavior and showing that it's not something that's just supposed to be done in school is so important.
So let's talk a little bit about good reading behavior.
Sure.
Obviously, we talked earlier about how kids are like parrots. They repeat and mimic what adults do. So how can we as adults help kids read? What are
Sure.
some of the tricks of the trade that you talk to people about?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is we are constantly staring at these devices, right? So,
Right.
and yes,
Is that a good thing
sometimes,
or a bad thing?
I think the problem is, I think we can do better.
Okay.
I think that, yes, sometimes when we're on our phones, we are reading. We are reading the news. We are,
Right.
reading an article somewhere. But most of the time, we're mindlessly scrolling,
Right.
right?
And usually through videos.
And
And
usually through
videos are
videos,
mindless.
exactly.
You're not reading, you're not absorbing
But
it.
if that's all a kid is seeing is you on a device all of the time. So I would suggest, I encourage people all the time to put down your device, to pick up a book, read with your children, offer the kids, if they're early readers or they're not reading yet, you can read aloud to them.
Hmm.
When they're just learning how to read, you could do, I can read a page, you can read a
Right.
page. If you can't read yourself, if there's a member of your family who is illiterate and you have a young child, you can still have that time together because you can use picture books. You don't have
Okay.
to read the words on the page. You can look at the pictures and talk about the
Yeah,
story.
what kind of animal is that? You ask the
Exactly.
child. Oh, it's a
Just
dinosaur, a dog.
use the artwork as a tool and
Okay.
talk about that. That counts. Um, Taking opportunities to encourage your kids to read. Say, for example, you are getting ready for a vacation.
Okay.
Okay. And you could ask your child, when they're a little bit older, perhaps, what's something you guys might like to do what's an idea
Okay.
you have of something we could do
We're
on
going on
vacation?
vacation to Rhode Island.
Exactly.
I need you to do some research,
Yeah.
and let's find. We want to do some fun things that you want to do. So
Exactly.
find them.
So that could be go to the library and get books out on Rhode Island. That could be actually using a computer or a device to do some research,
Okay.
and have them read up and come back to you with some suggestions of things they might like to do while they're on vacation. So there are lots of ways that you can weave it in. What you don't ever want to do is make it a punishment. Don't ever make,
All right.
you know,
Put that video game down and go read.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It should always be something that's a positive experience.
Right. And speaking of vacations, if you as an adult, if you're doing a beach vacation, you're sitting there reading a book,
Yeah.
whether it's on a tablet or a hard-covered book, hard copy book, encourage your kids to do the same. Maybe find out what some of the popular books are for that age group. Bring them on vacation.
Make it a part of getting ready for vacation. Make a stop at the library to get your summer reads part of packing up the rest of the car to go on vacation. You just make it a very normal thing. And if they see you doing it, they're going to normalize, okay, we go to the beach, we read at the beach.
It's like every afternoon we cook dinner.
Exactly.
Every morning we have coffee, and breakfast.
It's just part of our day.
A book is just another part of the day.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I have heard you mention before is books on tape. Okay. How is that beneficial?
In so many ways. I know
we've
gone back and forth
books
on
on
this
tape
before.
anymore, but audiobooks.
Audiobooks, absolutely. It counts. And it's especially a great tool for kids who are a bit of a reluctant reader. You are still following a story. You are still getting to know characters. You are still hearing and learning vocabulary words. A lot of the skills that kids use when they are reading on the page also translate to audiobooks. So it does count. And they're also a great way, speaking of being in the car, it can be on the way to school and back.
Right.
If you're listening to a story with your kids in the car, you can then use that story as a topic of conversation.
Right.
It's something that you guys are sharing in common. You're both enjoying it and you're talking about it in the course of your day.
Like a podcast from Neil deGrasse Tyson or, Mike Rowe or something like that.
Yeah.
Those are beneficial.
Exactly. And oftentimes what they're finding is that when kids get hooked on a story, they wind up becoming readers down the road. It translates to turning into actually reading from the page.
We are upon our second break. We're with Laurie Flynn, the president and CEO of Link to Libraries. We will be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to today's edition of In Focus. I'm here with Laurie Flynn. She is the president and CEO of Link to Libraries. Laurie, thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course. My pleasure to be here.
So we've talked, the origin of Link to Libraries. We've talked about, some of the statistics that are troubling our communities as far as literacy rates go. On a day-to-day basis, how is your organization working with local school districts, working with local parents, local parenting groups to make sure kids are reading more and exposed more to the books that they want, not just school books?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they've got to be attractive to the kids, or the kids aren't going to want to pick them up at home and read them. Which is one of the reasons it's so important to update library collections, which is why we focus so much on that, because kids don't want to read the same book that I put back on the shelf in 1982. It doesn't look fun. The new covers,
Nobody's reading Huckleberry Finn anymore?
They are, but, they might put it back a few times before they're forced to take it.
Dante's Inferno? God, I'm going back. Ugh. That's why I hated reading as a kid, because Dante's Inferno and some of those books.
It's heavy. It's heavy, Patrick.
Oh, exactly.
So really, I think that the short answer to your question is keeping the lines of communication open. We are constantly talking with educators and librarians about what they would like, what would be helpful to them. For example, when COVID hit, reading levels really, really, really took a hit. They dropped significantly. And so suddenly we're faced with the books we used to buy for third graders are now books that sixth graders are reading.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had to revamp how we were ordering books, what titles we were incorporating for our readers to give out to the kids. So we worked really closely with the librarians about how to do that. What did they need?
It's interesting you share that story, because that just shows you how bad COVID affected our students.
Yeah.
I mean,
We still feel it. It's still,
really?
we have not fully recovered from that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because those kids that were of the preschool, kindergarten, early reading stage at that time are now the ones who are
They're in high
coming up
school.
into
Right.
they're in
So those sixth graders 5 years
missed
ago,
all
now they're
that.
11th graders.
So they just, so yes, we're still feeling the ripple effect of that. So, for example, we talked to librarians. Librarians are clamoring for more graphic novels because
Explain a graphic novel.
a graphic novel is a novel told in pictures.
Okay.
With words, with captions, but it is, people like to compare them to comic books, but they're really a lot more than that. They're full-length novels that are told with images, which is great for kids who are reluctant readers or having difficulty reading. Because when you open a book and it's just words on a
Page after
page,
page.
it's intimidating.
Right.
But if you open up a book that is predominantly images, you can get clues about what's happening from the images themselves. It helps kids decode plot and decode character. There are words on the page that they're reading, but they're not so intimidating. They're not
Right.
inundated with them. So graphic novels are a great tool to get kids to read who might be reluctant to do so. Unfortunately, they are more expensive than traditionally published books because of the artwork and the ink, and just producing them is more expensive. So
now that you've explained it, graphic novels to me seem like a win because
Huge
the
win.
images that the artist put on the page really get the creativity flowing in the
Yes.
reader.
Yeah.
Because to your point, there might be clues in the image that kind of relate to the storyline and so forth. Wow, that's actually
Yeah.
And so I think of comic books. I remember my grandparents used to have a drawer full of comic books. So
Yeah.
whenever one of the grandkids came over, they just, granted it was Blondie and Dagwood, but we're going back a few days. But those are great ways to
Yes.
get kids reading.
Yeah.
As well.
And there's like this generational block where parents were feeling like they're not really reading if they're reading a comic book
Oh,
or
yeah.
a graphic novel. And that's just not the case. If they're reading, they're reading.
Yeah.
And if they're enjoying it, all the better. So, but that's an example of how we keep the lines of communication open with librarians and educators about we don't want to be providing books that the kids aren't actually going to make use of.
It makes no sense. It's
Right.
a waste of money, a waste of time on everybody's
Right,
part.
exactly.
So do you get feedback from the schools of, hey, the kids are following this particular author?
Mm-hmm. We do. It's a little bit difficult because we can't take individual requests all the time.
Right.
But I try to more notice trends so that when I am purchasing books, I know that I'm falling into a category of what would be helpful for the
Okay.
librarians. But I'd love to be able to take wish lists all the time. It's just not economically possible. But whenever I can, I certainly do. And we also support other nonprofits that are servicing the same families that we serve. So the Square Ones, the Boys and Girls Clubs, those types of
Work
organizations.
hand in hand with those organizations.
Exactly. Salvation Army at Christmas time, we give 1,000 books every year to their Toys for Joy campaign. So we try and support with books other organizations to help kids get books in their homes in other ways.
So within the last few years, Link to Libraries hit a milestone.
We did.
Tell me about
it. A big one. In 2023, we gave away our 1,000,000th book.
1 million books. And in how many years?
So we were founded in 2008. So I'm a reading girl, Patrick, so you're going to have to do the math on that. But yes.
So in 15 years.
Yeah.
So in 15 years, you gave away 1 million books.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, so that was a massive accomplishment. We were delighted to be able to celebrate that, and we'll be around until we give away 2 million.
What's any big things on the Link to Libraries agenda coming up for the 25-26 school year?
We have, in terms of events and those
Anything.
kinds of things, yeah, we'll have events throughout the year.
And it's fundraising events too, because you need the money to buy the books to give to the kids. Yeah,
we do. Yeah, fundraising is a critical aspect of this job because we need to be able to purchase the books that the kids so desperately need. So we're going to be at Forest Park helping out with their Zoo Spooktacular up in October.
Fun.
So we try and find as many community events as possible where we could be present and giving away books to kids. But yeah, if you check out linktolibraries.org, you will always see a running list of what we've got going on, events to attend, and ways to support us.
Wonderful. Laurie Flynn, I want to thank you so very much for giving me some of your time. I know you're very busy keeping those kids reading. So thank you for joining me and best of success.
I will come back anytime. Thank you, Patrick.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.